Lou, good morning. Thank you so much for joining me here today and talking a little bit about what we're doing here between Angeli Capital Sterling Operations and ecoSPEARS. I'm excited about this partnership. I think this is something that, I think this is something so important. The mission is so important that when you find others that are also for the mission and driven, ultimately driven specifically for the mission, it's always fun. And we know that this is going to be a partnership that's meant to last the ages. So can you give us a little bit of background about yourself, Lou, so we have that in the bio?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me, Serg. It's a pleasure to be talking again to you. My background is I'm mostly in technology, but I was an executive for many years with Trane Technologies. Most people know it as Trane Air Conditioning, but we did some pretty unique things by leveraging technology. We were able to increase productivity of our technicians and doing things that other companies and competitors were not doing with technology, which allowed us to get some great insights into how buildings operate. And we got to a point where we were doing predictive services as opposed to preventive services. And as a result of that, we got the attention of Trane. We were a franchise of Trane and ultimately sold our business recently to Trane. So my background has always been in various different functions, various different responsibilities within the Trane organization, both working for corporate and for franchise organizations of Trane. So we were doing projects that were energy projects that paid for themselves, and we would guarantee that they would pay for themselves, or we would write the gap check on the lease. So that's pretty. I'm always looking for the attractive offer, and that's kind of what attracted me, at least my perspective as part of Angeli Capital, attracted me to what ecoSPEARS is doing. It's pretty hard to not pay attention. You know, your only question in the back of your mind is, does this stuff work? For sure, and we already know that it does. But it's not a question of, is there an opportunity here? It's really a question of, how do you scale it?
Yeah, and a lot of the times, it's kind of like a running joke now. It's like about essentially nailing it before you scale it, right? Because there's just so much opportunity. And we're always mindful together now, basically looking at everything and saying, what does this 10 million investment going to basically be driven for, right? Because we can't do a shotgun blast approach. So thank you for that, Lou. I'll come back to that whole predictive aspect, what you did with Trane. At that time, I remember that the time frame that you guys did this, that was kind of in line with the healthy buildings. And now you are ahead of the curve, and because now the buzzword is not predictive anymore, it's AI, right?
Correct. Yep.
It was predictive, then it was Internet of Things. I hated that term so much. and then AI, machine learning, and then AI. But you guys were far well ahead of that. And folks always ask me, okay, what's very attractive about certain types of investors? Because we've always been educated and mentored to always ask potential investors, what else do you guys bring outside of cash, right? Yeah. Because we're in this growth scale phase of the company, and with Angeli Capital or Sterling Operations or ACSO, it was quite easy. We figured it out right away. And I remember telling Jerry, I'm like, hey, Jerry, I would like to kind of headhunt some of your guys because it's the wealth of operational impact and value that you guys bring to the table is just tremendous. So
we pride ourselves as operators, not just investors. And if there's an investment opportunity that's totally passive, it probably doesn't excite us as much as one that we can get engaged with, especially if it's purpose driven and the leadership of the company is engaging and passionate about what they're trying to accomplish. And usually it's more than money. That makes it exciting for us, especially if we can lend a hand.
So let's dive into that a little bit more, Lou. What did ACSO find attractive about the climate within the environmental cleanup that ecoSPEARS is a part of?
So I think part of it is the opportunity is massive. The solutions are waning out there, other than ecoSPEARS solution. I mean, when I first learned about what some of these clients or soon to be clients of yours have to deal with, whether they litigate or remediate, and the cost of remediation is so staggeringly high that litigation actually becomes an opportunity to just defer. And there really isn't a cost-effective solution out there. And then to uncover that there really is one out there, we just got to get it to market. That's one of the things that most excited us about the ecoSPEARS opportunity, and the fact that the market is so large. The biggest, and we've talked about this many times, the biggest issue that we might have is to make sure that we have the brakes on in the right areas and just stay focused in the areas that are going to drive the growth of the company, so that we can then later take care of some of the other, what we jokingly called shining objects. Yeah. Because there's so many shiny objects out there that this technology can provide a solution to.
Absolutely. And then as far as the market being antiquated and all, and really ready for innovation, and Matt Neal from Element Environmental, a partner from Element Environmental in Hawaii the other day when I interviewed him, said this, that the ecoSPEARS as a whole, not just the ecoSPEARS clean tech solution, he called it instrument for change. So talk to me a little bit about that, about this market, and it's ready for innovation, and how ecoSPEARS comes in as is essentially that instrument for change.
Well, I would start with the fact that I think that there's a fair amount, you could call it peer pressure, media pressure. There's a fair amount of pressure being applied to society right now to clean up our planet, clean up our act. It costs too much is not an excuse anymore. It happened because of the guy on watch before me. That's not an excuse anymore. It's really, we've got to roll up our sleeves and get it done. And we just see ecoSPEARS as the horse to ride, so to speak, in getting it done. So we just see there's whether the buyer of this technology is purpose driven and really wants it done or not, it's not going to matter in the coming years. What's going to matter is stakeholders and shareholders, and what do they want done, and how much pressure is applied to the entity that ultimately hires ecoSPEARS to resolve the solution. Yeah.
So deeper into that, what challenges do you see in remediation that they're facing right now, and how ecoSPEARS is addressing them, and bring that back to your mention earlier about the gap coverage of what you did within Train, right? Because, you know, we always say when we speak with potential clients is that there's costs to remediation. That's what everybody's dialing on, because there's a big dollar sign to it, right? That's the denominator, it's a dollar sign. But people neglect, until recently, cost to the environment and cost to community. And I think what has transpired over the last few months here within East Palestine, Ohio, and the train derailment, how they addressed it in an emergency fashion, you know, nothing, not saying anything, but the dig and haul approach. And then the other day they had a truck, you know, turning over and spilling more to another community. There's a community and this environmental cost to it also. So, but mindful of the dollar, the almighty dollar, because that's what everybody wants. They need to pay for it, right? How do you envision, like what you did with Train, and creating that kind of gap, and making it really attractive for our buyers, for our clients?
Sure. So one of the things, first of all, you have to look at what does the industry or what does society think of the current state, so to speak. And in most cases, our clients, when I was at Train, our clients thought of a building as a liability, not as an asset. And I don't mean that from the financial perspective or the accounting perspective. I mean it from the how does the building play into the mission of the company, and how do we activate the building so that it becomes part of the mission rather than just a liability that they have to pay for, a cost of doing business, so to speak. Yeah. So creating that gap in their mind that, wait a minute, this building can actually contribute to productivity, to all the end results, you know, the outcomes that we're looking to stage as an organization, and what are the things that are missing in this building to make it run at peak performance, and to make it allow the individuals that are inhabiting the building to be at maximum performance levels. So it moved away from, oh, let's just make it comfortable and let's just make it as efficient as we can make it, to if we're going to rely on it, then let's make sure that it's reliable. And how do we make it something that everybody in the building can count on and contribute towards the productivity and the outcomes that the company's trying to advance on. Those gaps, are, you've got decades probably, and it's the same in the industry that you're in, and you got decades of thinking, of old think, that says, this is what it should be, this is the way we should account for it, this is the way we should remediate or solve these problems. And when somebody comes in with what I'll call this a disruptive way of addressing the situation, disruptive but effective, it's hard for them to get their heads wrapped around it until they see others have already done it. So it's hard to get the first couple of people in line to do it. In our case, getting Fort Knox to do it in Kentucky, one of the largest military bases in the world, and certainly one of the more critical bases. And by the way, it was one of the bases that would likely get shut down at some point on the BRAC list, because of the missions it was getting. Each of these bases have missions, and once we were able to get them to think about that whole facility as part of the method in which they get their outcomes that they desire, if it's training tank commanders, if it's helicopters, whatever their mission happened to be, and align it with that, and lowering their cost of operation to the point where while increasing their liability at the same time. Once they committed to it, then everybody else in the marketplace started to take notice and say, let's follow this and see how this is going. And of course, we wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't successful. So it was successful. And as a result, other clients lined up and said, how would this apply to us?
Right.
And it created almost a FOMO, but it certainly created a gap of, okay, I need to at least understand this, because today's safe decision might not be the most cost-effective decision that's available.
And that's what I love about ACSO, because you guys, outside of just being investors, but are also true operators within companies that you've built yourselves, right? Not just consulted for, not just, invested in, because you guys fully understand that lead time to acquisition or sale, right? Acquiring the client takes a little bit longer, right? And there is that, you need to get a first initial clients first to start creating that first domino to tip, right? And so we've talked a lot about in the beginning of our interaction with ACSO about ecoSPEARS' ability to gain traction with the contracts, the clients that we have now, especially for treatability and pilot programs. And end of 2022 was the first time where few clients have asked us to basically say, hey, just skip putting together a proposal for the pilot, build it into the full scale. Get us a treatability study to full scale. So now we're starting to see this sales model and sales schedule starting to get compressed now, which is exciting. Which also means, get your resources in order, because you now have to send a lot more people, a lot more equipment into the field. But talk to us also about about ecoSPEARS' ability to kind of gain that traction in a relatively short period of time, and why was that super exciting to ACSO? I mean, it's pretty obvious, but let us hear your take on that.
So the first thought I have is your industry is unique to some of the industries that we've been involved in, and that is that it was normal for you to have a pilot program first, which unfortunately extends or lengthens the closure time for the larger order. But at the same time, it does create a mental perspective on the client's perspective that I can at least do this small project and prove the concept, and then I don't get my wrist slapped if I go to the next level because I've already proven the concept. We didn't have that in some of the things that I was involved in, we didn't have that luxury, I'm going to call it. Of course, it increases your cycle time on closing orders, but it also, when I look at the pipeline that you guys have built based off of the pilot programs that you've done, I would put a pretty high percentage on the drag along of how much of those projects are going to turn into larger projects based on the results of the pilot project. It's exciting that now some of your clients have come back and said, okay, we don't need the pilot. We know that the technology, or we trust the technology that works. We just need to build it out. And I think it's a perfect timing, or a perfect positive storm, so to speak, that as we do our capital raises and we close some of these projects at the second phase or the larger phase, or we just build it from ground zero as a larger project, it gives this great opportunity to dovetail the investments that are made in ecoSPEARS by the outside investment community with the pipeline, so that most of the money is going to scale, not to research and development, not to marketing, not to all the things that you don't really see the clear result of your investment on. We've literally got customers lined up, ready to go, as long as we can scale at the proper speed. And then you'd be remiss to look at the competitive landscape. And right now, the competitive landscape today, with a lack of competitive technology, is what I think you called it dig and haul. And the part of what you called it, the part of what you just brought up with dig and haul that just astounds me is how much energy and how much environmental impact of burning dirt. When you incinerate dirt, the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, not to mention the chemicals that go into the atmosphere that are in the sediment, you got to scratch your head and say there's got to be a better way to do this. And at least from Angeli Capital, we see it as ecoSPEARS has the better way to do this.
Right. And you know what pilot programs really affords us is a de-risking step as well.
Right.
Especially as you build new technologies, right? Because the stuff that we're doing is, I certainly haven't seen it in the industry. And we're de-risking every single way, so that what the value that we're basically presenting at the full scale model is just not an amazing value for our client, but also one that we've de-risked internally, so that we can now actually open up margins, within the financial side, because we know exactly how to treat our consumables, so we don't have to bring more consumables into the field. We've gotten our logistics in play, because, hey, working from Florida, manufacturing in California, possibly in Europe soon, and then shipping it out to Guam and Hawaii to do work, it's a big undertaking. It's a big task. So
right.
we've selected the right clients to start off with, and honestly, client partners, and that allowed for us to kind of grow. Now the question asked now is that, can we grow to this with the proper amount of equipment build out, with a proper amount of team that can answer the call, right? That's the growth scale phase. That's the next challenge.
Right.
And
I love part of some of the things that you're doing, as far as, you're identifying some joint venture partner type arrangements and that kind of thing, which also relieves the impact of capital. Or the requirement of capital to scale, if you can find opportunities for some sort of a partnership that makes sense, where you have somebody that's already in the industry but doesn't have access to your technology, right. and you could be prime over the remediation without having to do thousands of hires. Is also pretty exciting.
Yeah, especially as we embark on our 8A and potentially GSA later this summer. That's going to really make it very, very interesting and exciting for our partners, because now we can go after collaboratively together those 8A programs, and leveraging ecoSPEARS' status to gain to get the project, and then have the bigs, right, be the army in the back to basically execute the program with us, and it also de-risk it for the client itself as well.
Right. And in many cases, I understand that the people you're partnering with already also have relationships with the client. through other projects and that kind of thing. So it just makes a stronger team, a stronger connection between you all.
Yeah, it's quite interesting also because as we talk to either one of them, a lot of the conversation is like, hey, can you get us into your projects? You know, this is them asking us. And I'm like, no, you guys have the client pool, you know, bring us into your projects first before we start talking, you know, we'll do both. But just know that this is a true two-way relationship. We bring value with the technology that we bring and the new and creative ways that we're approaching the problem. That you know some of the bigs may have lost because of the culture that sometimes gets lost as you get bigger as a company.
Yep.
So then we're transitioning to the next question here, which is on the focus of team leadership and culture. Culture is a big part of everything that we do because culture is what has gotten us here to date. And I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit more about that and how that culture and ACSO's culture align, most especially the values within the two companies.
Yep. So everybody's heard the saying "culture eats strategy" for breakfast, and I believe that it is 100% correct. Without the right culture in place, it doesn't matter how smart you are, how much money you have, how good your product is. You're destined to go on a decline at some point. You may ride the wave for a while, but you're destined to go on a decline. And then the hardest part when you grow a business is maintaining the culture, assuming you already have the culture that's desired, maintaining it without slowing down the growth as you scale. So it becomes a tremendous talent acquisition, talent retention task so that you don't look different when you have 500 employees than you did when you had 20. In terms of your culture. Culture drives all of that. I think culture overcomes a lot of, if a strategy is a little bit weak or if the strategy may have some gaps in it, culture kind of just muscles through it if you have the right culture. The alignment that we have with ecoSPEARS, Angeli Capital Sterling Operations, is, we just saw, I don't even know how to put it into words. It was just, we had a couple of meetings and it just felt like, we need to be a part of you. You need to be a part of us. We just kind of felt that way. And the more we got into it and the more we started talking about the values and how driven your organization is by the purpose that you're involved in, it just aligned immediately with what we wanted to invest in all along, the kind of things that we wanted to invest in all along. It's great to make an investment in 6 months, triple your money and all that kind of stuff. And you can be looked at as wow, what a genius that guy was who made that investment. But the reality is, if it's not, it's got to have more impact than money nowadays, especially with the investment pool coming of age right now that are folks that are really more interested in the planet, more interested in the total outcome of the solution. Call it the triple bottom line is often referred to, the green bottom line. It's not just about the money. And to be in alignment with that and to find a company that is truly sitting on top of we talked earlier about how big the opportunity is with the right technology, the right solution, the ability to scale, the ability to align the future investments in the business with the projects that are in the pipeline so that most of the money that's invested goes into the projects and gets, that's the financial part is, you reap a fair amount of profit that way without having wasted a lot of capital. All of that coming together, it just fit perfectly in our mantra, so to speak, of what we wanted to invest in. I wouldn't call Angeli Capital one of those green investment firms. We're not necessarily looking at it from that perspective, but it was pretty easy when we looked at what you were doing and what ecoSPEARS is doing and where they're going, to say this makes a lot of sense economically, geopolitically, internationally, not just for the U.S. It just made a lot of sense, and I think that our biggest challenge going forward is to stay focused on our mission, because there's going to be so many ancillary opportunities that could be quick money. They could be quick. We got a special client that wants a favor kind of thing. But there's so many. There's just staying focused on that pipeline and bringing in that pipeline is going to generate so much interest and generate so much me too internationally that the company's going to be secure for many, many years.
Agreed. So let's end with this, Lou, and staying on the same page as impact, right? You guys are based in Fort Lauderdale, another Florida firm, and you've introduced us already to quite a bit of folks down there in Fort Lauderdale, especially with Port Everglades and whatnot. Most of our work is done in California, Hawaii, Southwest Pacific, Washington State, DC. We have not had much projects here in Florida, and that's what we're excited about, is starting to do projects here, especially in Southeast Florida. Impact. Let's go back to impact there. What drives ACSO in making Florida investment or investment into Florida companies that can basically lead to impact, so that the world sees Florida not just as a Mickey Mouse town or orange. I don't even think we grow oranges anymore. But what drives that mission for ACSO and investing into Florida companies?
Well, I think it starts with just what you said. It starts with, okay, what is Florida known for? And of course, it's tourism, it's the mouse, space. There's a fair amount of space. So there is a little bit of a tech twist there. But we've always heard how, oh, it's hard to get real estate. It's hard to, no, it's not. You just have to have the right opportunity in front of you and the right solutions and the right organizations that you want engaged. There's no shortage of environmental problems in Florida by any means. And most of those many of those environmental problems are problems that you guys have the solutions to. It would be wonderful to have kind of a hometown company, so to speak, be the company to come in and solve these, and to be the company that makes these impacts, and be forever known as the ones that made an environmental impact on something that is it's not something as delicate as the environment in Florida. It's a very delicate environment when you talk about the hydrodynamics of the water and salt water, brackish water, fresh water, Everglades, that kind of thing. And how do we protect all that and make sure it doesn't continue to get worse? It's just a wonderful opportunity to have a Florida-based company provide the solutions or some of the solutions that are needed in Florida.
Yeah, and what's exciting for us about ACSO and where you guys are positioned, which is in Fort Lauderdale area, being that is the yacht and boating capital of the world, right?
Of the world, yeah.
And that's incredible to us because that's where we operate. And finding manufacturing capabilities, finding resources, labor that understands the marine world. And could add value into what we're doing and say, hey guys, you don't do that in the ocean. That's completely, that's just, it's not going to work out. And we've had those conversations with some of the folks down there. It's incredible. And we're very excited about this partnership and looking to basically make a massive impact in not just our backyard, but the blue economy out there that connects all continents together, which is ports and the ocean. So thank you so much, Lou.
Thank you, Serg.
I'll wrap it up from here, and hope you have a great week.
Thank you, Serg. You too.